Of the people who are still alive but have drifted out of your life, who do you wonder about the most and why? When I was 7 years old, I had a best friend named Shannon. One day she didn't come to school, and nobody answered at her house when my mom called. A month later I got a phone call from her and she said they had to go away and she missed me. Then the call cut out like someone took the phone and hung up on her. I never heard from her again. I assume she and her family went into witness protection or something similar. I hope they made it through and she grew up okay. This gave me chills. My name is Shannon and one day I moved abruptly due to child support issues. I was living with my bio father who was a horrible parent to my sister and sadly he won custody over my mom who was stable and worked several jobs to provide us. I never got to say goodbye to my friends and get my stuff at my old school, crying face. When I was a child and living with my parents, we rented our basement to a man named Hoon. He was super nice to us and even tutored my brother and I in school. The coolest thing was that he was super into astronomy and every so often, he set up his telescope in our backyard to look at stars and the moon and invited us to look as well. He became like family to us and when my parents decided to tear down our house and build a new place, Hoon came along with us to live in a temporary space until the house was built, and then moved back to our new house as our tenant again. During this period, Hoon also drove my brother and I to school as we were not living within walking distance from our temporary space. After 1 to 2 years, one day my parents said that Hoon moved back to Malaysia and we never saw him again. My then friend, who was another one of our tenants, told me that Hoon died and my parents were lying to me. I asked my parents about this but they said that isn't true. I think my then friend was just messing with me. I always wondered why he suddenly moved and haven't been able to find any online presence of him. Why don't you ask your parents again now that you're older? Probably an immigration/visa issue. Most likely got deported. Just guessing toe. His nickname was Question. Kid from high school used to come sit with us at lunch. Great guy, super nice. Every single thing he said was a question. He would ask you about your entire day, where you got your new shoes, ask about your haircut. I would ask him the same questions and he wouldn't answer me, kind of stare off and almost ignore the question completely. Then he would ask you another question. Sounds like some kind of autism to me. OMG, I knew a kid like this. His name was Mark, and did the exact same thing, so we always called him Question Mark. He was one of my best friends as a kid. Wonder what he's been up to. RuneScape user Lone Wolf 1039. You made my childhood amazing, bro. Countless hours playing one of my childhood favorites with an online friend. We called each other brother. If you're still out there, MK Groudon misses you, man. There's probably a ton of us in this thread remembering our old friends who logged out forever. Here's to you archaeologist aka Stanley, old friend from 3rd grade who moved to Pennsylvania and not too long after that, stopped logging into RuneScape. He was my closest friend at that time. Imagine his Lone Wolf 1039 sees this. That would be dream come true. When I went backpacking around SE Asia I went with no particular plans. I ran into a Polish paratrooper my second day there who used me to get a couple of girls to go out for drinks with him, since I said hey to him earlier in the day. He wasn't going anywhere in particular either, so we spent the next 2 months on the road going to 5 different countries. The guy was literally my brother for those 2 months. We parted ways when I had to go to a country he couldn't get a visa for and it was where I was to catch my flight home. We still talk daily for a few weeks and we were talking about starting a business, then he falls off the face of the earth. I'm positive his dad was a someone, so he didn't talk much about certain aspects of his life. He didn't have any social media and he didn't renew the domain he hosted his email on, so no way of contacting him. Even friends who we met along the way frequently ask if I've heard from him since they wanted to connect with him again. I keep hoping one of these days we'll run into each other at a cafe or something by the waterfront having a beer like we did traveling. Dude, your story sounds like so much fun. I remember going on vacations with nothing in particular planned. I miss those days. Wow, this one hit me. Do you have any photos? Never know. My best friend from elementary school. He was so genuine and full of joy. I hope growing up didn't take that part away from him. That's a really nice hope for someone else. Nice to hear that. You should pursue finding him. Chances are, he feels the same. Me too. I moved around a lot and it was hard for me to make any friends. She was the very first real friend that I had. It only lasted about a year or two before I switched schools again. I was really upset about losing my best friend and even tried to keep in contact with her, but she didn't have a phone back then and it wasn't really reciprocated, so I guess I stopped trying. I made a lot of questionable choices in my later teen years and early 20s, before I was capable of using solid judgment. I wonder about the people I unintentionally hurt, and I wonder if I should apologize a decade later. I wonder what they would feel or think if I crossed their minds. I wonder if they've forgiven me and consider giving me the benefit of the doubt, or if they'll always remember me as the one who did X to them or didn't do Y. I feel a lot of regret and it still brings me a lot of shame, and I let it hold me back a lot. I got sober almost 3 years ago, and during that time I've reached out to make amends to people. Most people just laugh it off like, wow, I didn't even remember that moment. That's haunted you for years. It's uncomfortable but surprisingly gratifying at the same time. Some were harder than others as I listened to the hurt some have carried over the years because of my actions. It still gives me comfort in knowing that my side is clean now and I don't repeat those behaviors. Forgiveness made a lot more sense to me as I did this. I strongly relate to this. One time I actually did contact one of the people I thought I hurt, to apologize. She was kind of shocked that I contacted her out of the blue like that, just to apologize. But she didn't seem to be bothered and laughed it off, saying, it was all in the past. I guess a lot of people got over it and didn't bother to hold a grudge, or at least she didn't. I think my regrettable actions hurt me more than it hurt them. I worked with a girl back in my early 20s when I was still in the service industry. We would hang out pretty regularly. I had a bit of a crush on her. I really thought there may have been something there. Anyways, she stopped showing up to work. Everyone just assumed that she had quit. She was a bit of a wild child. Moved around a lot and had a bunch of different serving jobs. So nobody really thought twice about it. People just stopped showing up all the time in that line of work. A few weeks later we found out that her family/police had been searching for her. Apparently she disappeared. Still think about it a lot actually. I'm guessing she's dead. But you never know. I grew up going to church with a girl that I didn't get to know until I was an adult. We were the same age and ran in different circles at school, but were cordial on Sundays. When I was 20 or so I ran into her on a break from a night class at our community college. We had a chat, found out we had a lot in common, and made it a habit of finding each other on that break throughout the semester. I didn't see her after that semester. Facebook was in its infancy, so I didn't think to reach out online, so I went about my life. Her sister recently reached out online. I can't recall the last we spoke, but it was great to catch up. I told her about my experience and how much I had learned to like her sister. Unfortunately, she told me that had been murdered shortly after that semester. I think I preferred not knowing. You should check unidentified persons records. In 1999, a woman died in a car accident and fire in Los Angeles and has yet to be identified. She'd just bought the car used and it wasn't registered, and all the papers burned in the fire, so no one knows who she is. I imagine people noticed her missing like you're describing. Nobody came to mind at all at first, but then one person I remember does pop up every now and again. She was a friend in like 3rd grade, and we used to do normal kid stuff, but we had great chemistry and we're the best at making our own fun, inventing games with what was around us. Always Sunny. I haven't seen her in 25 years. I wonder what kind of person she turned into. Little weird things remind me of her when I see something we would make a game out of, or the weather is like the summer we played outside the most. Completely absent from social media and Google results, but also had a challenging name to spell from memory. Edit. Wow, so many people have similar stories. I certainly have some bittersweet feelings hearing all these tales of happy childhoods disconnected by time. Remember, all your lost friends out there probably tell the same stories about you and smile, picturing throwing balled up socks at ceiling fans or dancing like maniacs or whatever your crazy kids did. Heart. I've had this, too. Her name was Asia but spelled creatively like Aja, Aya, etc. I can never remember the spelling and can never find her to see what she's been up to for 20 years. We used to play together almost every day. Frown. Same thing. I had a friend who was with us for 1st and 2nd grade. Her father got transferred to her home state and they all ended up moving after 2nd grade. Have tried hard to locate her but with no success. This was in my hometown in India in 1991-92. Subscribe for more hot Reddit takes in your inbox, guaranteed.